So we all know that President Biden will likely not be the Democratic nominee in this election cycle. But another factor that plays into whether or not Harris will win is whether she's the incumbent. So if Biden resigns during his first term or is unfit to serve for any reason, Harris will take the presidency in accordance with the 25th Amendment, and as a result, she'll get the incumbency advantage against Donald Trump. And you may be wondering, what are some of the reasons Biden would actually resign from the presidency? Well, I don't think he would resign. I think the 25th Amendment would be enacted for different reasons. But if he were to personally resign, it would likely be because he would want Harris to have the incumbency advantage over Trump if he were to drop out of the race. Because in the end, even though he wouldn't be running, it would save face, and he wants Democrats to win. And also, he would probably want Harris to become the first female president of the United States, and he would want it to essentially be his doing that Harris was the first female president, because it would be upon his resignation. And anyways, this election prediction analyzes how Harris will do if she has the incumbency advantage against Trump. And before we continue, I'd just like to outline exactly why I think Biden will drop out. One of the main reasons is that top Democrats such as Obama, Pelosi, and others believe that Biden should drop out. And while they're not publicly saying this, they are privately saying this. Others are publicly saying this. As you can see, Senator Martin Heinrich from New Mexico says Biden should drop out, as well as Senator John Tester and many others. So there are 3 senators so far saying Biden should drop out, as well as 30 others in Congress. And remember, these are just Democrats. So these are just out of 264 congressional Democrats, and over 10% of congressional Democrats say Biden should drop out. That's a massive number. But before we continue, make sure to subscribe to my channel, because I'm the one who's been predicting time and time again that Biden should drop out. And now you'll see many other channels will be predicting this, but I'm the first one to say it. I'm the only one who has said it time and time again. And to join the 1%, make sure to subscribe today. Now back to the video. If we look at polls, it seems like Harris is doing slightly worse than Biden in some polls, but better than others. So it seems like Harris is doing relatively the same as Biden. But if she has incumbency advantage, I view that she will do better than Biden. Because remember, a lot of people may be voting for Trump or abstaining in the polls just because they don't know who Harris is. Because the American electorate doesn't always know who the vice president is. Usually they'll know who the president is, etc. And that's why some may not know who Harris is, and as such will not vote for her. Or vote in general. They may be like, who's this Harris figure? I'm not going to vote for her because I have no idea who she is. But if she's the incumbent president, becomes the 47th president of the United States, many will know who she is and will be more likely to vote for her. So with that being said, Harris will still pick up many of her safe states that Biden has picked up back in 2020 and that Hillary got in 2016. But with that being said, Trump also gets his safe states because Harris is not that popular of a candidate. Remember, she was a former prosecutor, and many people don't like prosecutors. Prosecutors aren't the most popular people because they're the ones who lock people up, not the ones who try to get people out of jail. And for that reason, Harris won't do well with many middle-class voters who don't like her record of basically locking people up, and especially she had a record for locking low-income people up. So with that being said, Harris will pick up 159 safe votes, whereas Trump picks 218. So Trump is already really close to the presidency just from his safe states. And in one last blow to Biden's campaign, union support is starting to fray, according to the New York Times. So unions have consistently supported Biden time and time again, yet now they are starting to support Trump, with the leader of the Teamsters actually appearing and giving a speech at the Republican National Convention. And if Biden loses unions, a major supporter for him back in 2020 and the Democratic Party as a whole, time and time again, he will almost certainly lose this election. Unions are so huge. They have hundreds of thousands of voters. And remember, the election in 2020 wasn't decided by hundreds of thousands. It was merely decided by just a few thousand in a few key states. And this election may be decided by even less. Who knows? But regardless, Harris may be able to pick up the union support that Biden lost. But then again, Biden, due to his middle-class background, may resonate more with unions. But on that same token, Biden is a career politician, which essentially doesn't bode well with unions. Vance will probably do better with unions than Biden has been doing recently, as Vance is not necessarily a career politician. He's basically the average guy. He's the average JD, if you will. He's just basically a quote-unquote reformed hillbilly. That's what he tries to say. He still has those roots, but he is basically the hillbilly's liaison to the White House. So with that being said, let's continue this prediction. We'll start off with some good news for Harris, or just some news that isn't terrible for her. She'll win the state of Oregon, which is pretty obvious that is going to Harris. If it didn't go to Harris, that would be very terrible for her. She'll also win the state of New Mexico. Remember, Senator Martin Heinrich from New Mexico said that Biden should drop out. However, New Mexico back in 2016 didn't go to Clinton by that much, and in earlier elections, well, against McCain, it went to Obama by a lot. But Bush had actually won New Mexico. So with that being said, New Mexico can't be considered a safe state for Harris. And neither can the state of Colorado, which has similar voting patterns as New Mexico. But remember, Harris will do well with increasing minority turnout, and as such will do well in New Mexico, which is a state that has a high minority population. And on that note, I should mention how Trump is trying to make a play for minority votes, especially exemplified in the Republican National Convention, which included many African Americans and Hispanic Americans. And with that being said, Democrats can't just sit there and expect the minority vote to go their way like they did in 2016 and even in 2020. They've got to actually work for it, which is something I think Harris can actually do way better than Biden can. But regardless, Harris doesn't even catch up to Trump, not even if she gets the state of New Jersey, which has been marred with controversy among Democrats, but she'll pick it up regardless since New Jersey is usually a safely Democrat state. It has a few scares like in 2016, but it went to Clinton pretty solidly regardless. But in 2024, New Jersey will be closer. Bob Menendez, senator from New Jersey, was just found guilty on corruption charges. Jack Ciattarelli, running for New Jersey governor in 2021, almost defeated Phil Murphy, etc. New Jersey Democrats are not popular whatsoever. And I'm going to go on a side tangent about this for a second, so bear with me. This dude, Bob Menendez, chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee up until 2023, was indicted for corruption in 2015. And then in 2023, but yet New Jersey voters voted for him time and time again, voted for him into the Senate in 2018, in 2012, etc. Well, he was indicted in 2015, to be fair, but he was convicted in 2024 for corruption, and everyone knew this was coming. Menendez has to run on an independent ballot in 2024 because people basically said, enough with this guy, he's so corrupt, I'm not voting for him. So he's still running as an independent. This guy, the gall that this guy has to run as an independent after being convicted of corruption. So anyone in New Jersey right now, I'm just saying, please, I'm an independent, but please do not vote for Bob Menendez. This guy is corrupt. He's a bad guy. Do not vote for him. Vote for anyone else, essentially. Vote for Andy Kim. Vote for Curtis Bashaw. I really don't care. Just not Bob Menendez. And that's pretty much my only endorsement in this entire campaign. Just don't vote for Bob Menendez. This guy is bad. He's pretty evil. He's corrupt, etc. Now back to the video. And rounding out the Northeast, Harris will likely win the state of Maine. Especially if she's the incumbent. People will know who she is. People will vote for her. Heck, Maine even went to Hillary Clinton. And Harris is a more popular candidate than Clinton. Remember, Clinton had many controversies with Benghazi. Hillary Clinton had controversies with emails. Harris has her own fair share of controversies, but she still is the vice president, and in this case would be the president of the United States. And she would also win the state of New Hampshire, bring her to 202 electoral votes. However, Trump would win Maine second, bring him to 219. But it seems like this would be the end of Harris's run as we get to the Midwest. So as we see in Midwest polls, so we'll start with the state of Pennsylvania. Trump famously said, "Drill, baby, drill." As you can see, the governor of Pennsylvania, Shapiro, would beat Trump, but Trump would beat Kamala Harris in the state of Pennsylvania by +2 or even as high as +7. I do think it would be relatively close if Harris is the incumbent, but Trump picks up the 19 electoral votes nonetheless. And now we get to Michigan, which doesn't like Biden's policy on the conflict in Gaza. But he may like Harris's policy even more. Who knows what Harris's policy will be, but the fact that she's been relatively vague may help her. If she's the incumbent, she'll probably lose by about 3 percentage points against Donald Trump, so Donald Trump picks up the state of Michigan. But Harris might get the state of Minnesota, a famed Democrat state, and it has been going to Democrats time and time again, going to Biden by +6 in this poll, Trump by only +1 in this poll. I do think it would tilt to Harris if Harris were to run as an incumbent. And now we get to Wisconsin. So Wisconsin has been one of the closest states in this election until recently when Trump has skyrocketed in the polls. So Harris is losing to Trump by about 1 in recent polls. And if Harris is the incumbent, it seems like as of now, Harris would win Wisconsin by a tilt fashion. However, if we go to the political betting markets, we can see that Wisconsin has a 60% chance of going to Trump. So for that reason, the polls are incorrect and Trump would win Wisconsin in a tilt fashion. And now we get to Virginia, a state that has gone to the Democrats time and time again. Went to Clinton, went to Biden, went to Obama, etc. Will it go to Harris? Well, we'll have to look at the polls to see this one. And the polls tell a clear story. Trump does better in Virginia against Harris than he does against Biden. So with that being said, Trump will beat Harris, but if Harris is the incumbent, it will be relatively close. So it'll just be a tilt state for Donald Trump. So Trump wins this election, but let's see by how much he'll win this election by. So we'll get to the West Coast, which Harris will do slightly better in than Biden due to her being basically from the West Coast. But some voters who have moved from California to Nevada to Arizona will vote for Trump because these voters don't like Californian politicians. These voters are usually Californian Republicans that find Gavin Newsom, find Harris very unpopular and unlikable. As we can see, Harris's approval rating is extremely low for a vice president, being at a net 12% disapproval. So with that being said, Harris will not do as well in Nevada and Arizona as she hopes. Remember, Nevada and Arizona are almost certainly going to the Republican Party in this election, and polls validate this viewpoint. As we can see, Nevada is going to Trump by as much as +10 against Harris. And look at Arizona. Arizona tells a pretty similar story, where Arizona is going to Trump by as much as +6. Likely more like +4 if Harris is the incumbent, but then again, Trump does defeat Harris in both those states. If Harris is the incumbent, she'll likely win Nebraska's second, which is an urban district in the state of Nebraska. But Trump will win the state of Georgia. Georgia is a southern state. Georgia is a Republican traditional state, but just barely went to Biden in 2020. It had a few scares for the Republicans in terms of Senate elections, etc., but Trump will win Georgia, as Harris is widely unpopular in Georgia, especially compared to Biden. And now we get to North Carolina, where I do think Harris will do better in North Carolina than in Georgia, which is a little bit of a surprise, especially if she is the incumbent. So as you can see in North Carolina, Trump leads Biden by as much as +9. And against Harris, I think he would lead Harris by like +5 because North Carolina did have a strong shift rightward between 2016 and 2020, and it has shifted more and more in most major elections. This election was an anomaly, but in general, North Carolina has shifted leftward. But regardless, Trump will win North Carolina, winning this election 325 to 213 against Kamala Harris, even if Harris is the incumbent. So if you want more videos, make sure to subscribe, and thank you.